As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Welcome back. And as all of these crazy things are happening on Capitol Hill, and we are seeing that most of our federal representatives don't care about securing our border and do care about sending money we don't have to foreign countries rather than protecting our own people and our own interests. We now turn to the cultural war that has been going on for quite a while, but is continuing to just rampantly accelerate. And a number of things happened in the news yesterday and over the weekend that I think are just snapshots of exactly where we're at in this culture war with the rise of the LGBTQ agenda that is not just a, hey, tolerate us. It is bow down to us, or we will inflict pain on you through law, through action, and through even now a transgender shooter that went into Joel Osteen's church this past Sunday. So Iowa is trying to do something about it. And of course, activists protested Kim Reynolds' bill that tries simply to define male and female in the Iowa code, and this is somehow totally erasing transgenders. And we also saw that the DMV in Florida now, you have to have male and female, and there were these ridiculous protests that said that Governor DeSantis was literally killing transgender people because now they have to actually identify with the gender that is their biology. And this just shows again, how pervasive this agenda has become, because it's not about tolerance. It's about absolute acquiescence to their power and their control. So joining me now to talk about all this and more is someone much more prolific than me, our good friend Steve Deace from Blaze TV. And Steve, you went on a rant on your show yesterday that I listened to. It was profound. It was preaching. It was right on. Talking also about the He Gets Us commercial that aired during the Super Bowl. And you made this point that commercial, because of how many people watch the Super Bowl, that is the snapshot of the person of Jesus, which was totally false, that more people will see this year than hear anything else from any other Christian source. And it was so heretical. And so this is the contrast between what Christians are doing, which is almost nothing. We've caved as churches, and putting up this false notion of Jesus, versus the LGBTQ activists that are literally trying to ram this down our throats. So where do you want to start?
I really think, Jenna, we should start with what happened at Lakewood Church as that narrative continues to unravel. Because I think it's the most important story that has occurred this year and is likely to be the most important story that will occur this year. Because I think it touches on, it's the embodiment, it's a microcosm of an entire listless generation of the American church. And it's declining, but by choice. It abrogated. It wasn't defeated. It didn't face, the Islamic hordes that the Christian churches in Cappadocia or Asia Minor faced in antiquity. It didn't face the rise of a Third Reich that the churches in Europe faced. It just quit. I mean, it just decided, we're done. It's too hard. We don't want to do this anymore. And over the last generation, it has sought after cultural affirmation. It has sought after cultural accommodation. It's offered a false choice between some of our brethren who have decided that we bring Jesus back by becoming mascots for the Republican Party, and anything the Republican Party conjures up is instantly good and deemed righteousness by the fact that you won a Republican and Abraham won a Republican primary, Jenna. It was credited him righteousness. There is a group of people on our side that do behave this way, but they're not legion. They're not the majority. And so in opposition to this, another group emerged that said, hey, the path forward is a false choice. Instead of, abandoning the narrow road one way, let's abandon it the other way. Let's be nice to everybody. Let's make a crap ton of money. Let's make a bunch of people wealthy and promise them if they give us money, they'll get wealthy too somehow. And the face of this, and the most, I guess you'll call it, successful embodiment of this is Joel Osteen. This is the largest congregation in America in Houston, Texas. He's been on Oprah. He has his own channel on Sirius XM. His church just paid off a $100 million loan, and I have no idea why any church would ever need such a thing. And so he's talking, I don't preach about saying I want to make everybody happy. I mean, this is his message. He has preached the gospel of Bobby McFerrin, don't worry, be happy, for a generation. He has given, him and his congregation has given this culture everything it wants. When they elected their first lesbian mayor in Houston a decade ago, he went to her swearing in and blessed her. When she then turned around and tried to tranny the bathrooms in that city, he said nothing. When she put it up, when it was put up for a citywide ordinance, she lost by 30 points. He didn't speak out. When his fellow pastors, when she tried to subpoena and go after their pastor notes and find examples of hate speech or of them violating their nonprofit status, he didn't defend anyone or use his massive platform to defend the smaller churches in that community who took a stand. That scene, by the way, was inspired by a similar scene in God's Not Dead. It came right out of that story. Right? Nothing. He said nothing. While the brethren were slandered, he said nothing. He climbed the social ladder higher and higher and higher, was more successful, found some way to get to, in between, ministering to the millions to get washboard abs. He did everything that the spirit of the age said a Christian minister must do to merit its approval. And how was he repaid in the end? An illegal alien, armed, ironically enough, with an AR-15, who is gender dysphoric insane, went into his church with the intent of massacring as many people as she could. That was his potter's field. He received his reward in full. And I think that, to me, is the message here of the year. It's everything that we want to complain about, everything we want to point out, everything we want to say has gone wrong in this culture. It all stems from the fact that this is not the church of Jacob in America. We are not wrestling with God in our own imperfections. We're not even contending for the faith, to quote the New Testament with Jude. We are the church of Esau. Give us the engagement. Give us the mansion. Give us the acclaim. Give us the affirmation, and we'll give it right back to you. And we just want a bowl of porridge, and we have sold a stew. We have sold our birthright. And this country's gone to literal hell as a result. No ideology stepped in. Nobody stepped in and said, hey, you guys were wrong, and we've defeated you in the arena of ideas. The church just quit. It just quit. It just said, it's too hard, and just quit. And all we're seeing now is nature abhorring a vacuum. And the greatest sign of this, and maybe the ultimate sign of the times in the years I've been doing this full time, is what was just attempted at Lakewood Church. They gave the enemy everything he's ever wanted from a so-called Christian church. And how were they repaid? With an almost massacre. That from a deranged person who symbolizes on every front, open borders, rainbow jihad. I mean, even brandishing the AR-15 that most Americans don't know what it is, except if MSNBC is obsessed with this one particular gun. I mean, you couldn't, if you were a demon in hell, you couldn't have drawn this up better. And you know what? That's why they drew it up, I'm convinced. And I hope everybody within the sound of my voice, if you have ears to hear, let them hear. You will gain nothing. They will give you nothing. You give them everything they want, make every accommodation. Donald Trump made every accommodation they wanted from March 16, 2020 on. He ran from the riots. He ran from the virus. He abdicated his presidency. What did they do? They turned around and stole the dang election from him in broad daylight. You'll get nothing from these people. You'll get nothing from this spirit of the age. You'll get nothing, no matter how long you acquiesce, no matter how many times you bend the knee, you'll get nothing. And the He Gets Us campaign people, they'll get nothing too.
Preach it, brother. And this is so true that you can never give Satan enough to satisfy him. And Christians can never be appeasing of evil enough to satisfy the demonic spirit of the age. And yet we see that churches have acquiesced to this, because in exchange for acquiescing to evil, we have received comfort and glamour and follows and celebrity and, these mega churches and everything that Joel Osteen and the prosperity gospel stands for. And this is why I'm also convinced that so many Christians are now turning to politics to be the salvation of our country. Unfortunately, instead of calling pastors and calling Christians to be the church, we are now almost abdicating that role in civil society. And we're saying, okay, we need to take up then the mantle of hailing as our pastors and our spiritual leaders in the country, politicians. And I believe that is absolutely wrong. Your thoughts on that?
Completely agree. This is another example where the church just quit. I mean, I don't want pastors to get political. I want them to get prophetic. I don't need them to take a partisan stand. I mean, I don't necessarily mind if they do, if it's a prophetic one. But ultimately, we need Nathans who, the guy that runs your ministry, I've known and liked and respected for many years, Tim Wildman. I mean, he's a conservative's conservative. I mean, I can just tell you, if someone's been involved in Republican politics from grassroots to presidential campaigns, this AFA is an organization you want on your side. If I'm running for president, man, whether it was Tim or his recently passed Father Don, I'm not running for president without checking that box and meeting those people. And yet, how did Tim use his access? Last year, when a guy who was a pretty good president went to a Nevada State GOP event and just said a bunch of crude and profane things about another Christian and another conservative that just weren't even factually true, Tim called him out for it. Tim said, hey, like Nathan, thou art the man. That's not how we behave. That's why you're not president now. Stuff like that. That's what we actually need. We need people to be prophetic in the political space, not political in the political space. There's enough of that. There's enough operatives and everything else. You know what people don't have enough of? Christians. That's because we have the Spirit. That's what there's not enough of. Take it with you, man. And it's not about the outcome. It's about the faithfulness. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. I mean, God used the crudest man in modern political history to overturn Roe versus Wade. Not the nice Christian dude, George W. Bush, who had a great testimony about his, overcoming alcoholism and knew Billy Graham. No, he didn't have the stones to do it. The crude, profane dude on his third wife, and the previous two that he met, let's just say under questionable circumstances morally. That guy, he overturned Roe versus Wade. If we're faithful, then the names on the front of who wins these primaries, none of this stuff matters. This is the reason why we're declining on every front is because we have abdicated our obedience and faithfulness collectively as the church. That's why. It's about the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. And our temptation and is going to be, the more we see the church continue to obviously decline in influence, is to try to more and more use the political process, not as a means to an end, for setting public policy, and a very necessary one. I'm not telling anybody to abdicate this space. I've worked full time in it for 17 years. I just testified at my state legislature yesterday. Okay, what I'm saying is, don't lose yourself to it. Don't abdicate, don't leave it, but don't lose yourself to it either.
Right. And we need to identify first and foremost as Christians. I mean, if someone says, what is your identity? I would respond, my identity is in Christ. And that's it. And he is the one that determines my life, my ways, has given me immutable characteristics. He is the one that determines our gender. He is the one that determines all of that. And very, very, very secondarily to that, because it outflows from being a Christian and being in Christ, I am a conservative. And what that means is that I follow the Judeo-Christian worldview of government. But that doesn't mean that because I am a conservative, therefore I am a Republican and I'm partisan and I have to, like the Chiefs versus the 49ers, I have to just support my team because I want my team to win no matter what they do, if it's wrong or if it's bad. And we've become so hyper partisan because of this continued cultural abdication of the church's role, that we've replaced it with politics, that we have often, Steve, I think primarily identified as hyper partisan. And then we're just Christians in our churches, maybe, and in our homes, maybe, or potentially even just culturally.
Couldn't say it better myself. Completely agree. And I think that, when Jesus approaches Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, the religious leaders come out and demand that he stop the crowds cheering, Hosanna, Hosanna, Son of David. And what does he say next? He says, I could command them to do that, but then these stones would cry out. I'm doing Bible reading in a year for like the 7th time right now. And I just finished the story of Balaam, whose donkey, the Lord opens the mouth of his donkey to speak to him. It is true that God can use anything for his purposes. But we often use that as an excuse to say, I don't have to be faithful to God because I can abandon all of my principles and everything he says is right and wrong. And I'm just so special and my cause is just so worthy that he'll overlook that and give me what I want. The Israelites thought that too. And every time they did, they were judged. God can work through anything he wants, but he will only work through us as his covenant people via our own faithfulness. And that should be our number one key. It's not about I have to be in the political or cultural arena. It's about why I have to be. It's an expression of my faithfulness. It is my desire to take the gospel and the abundant life that Christ offers to the literal ends of the earth, to fulfill the Great Commission, even to the places and the points of great contention within the times in which I live. That's why. That's why. And here's the thing. The ironic thing is, if we do it for those reasons, God will then grant us Nebuchadnezzar's and other Cyrus's, very profane, crude, problematic people, and he'll steer them to our mission, because all things work together for the glory of God and for those called according to his purposes. If it is perceived we are losing, it is not because the devil got smarter. It's not because he has dominion. It's because we're not faithful and we've lost God's anointing. That's why.
Yeah, it is all about faithfulness, and we see that throughout the Old and the New Testament. And when even the prophets, and I always think of Jeremiah, who didn't win a single convert in his entire ministry, but yet God called him faithful. Why? Because he did what God had called him to do for his life. And I believe, Steve, that there is a judgment on America, and it is because, not just because the Republican Party is derelict and we aren't electing the right people and we're divided, or any of this hyper partisan rhetoric. It is because the church has derelicted its duty to stand firm against all of the evil that has pervaded the church, the family, and now the civil government. And we are seeing in real time how the civil government, when it loses its expression of objective truth and morality, that the entire society descends into chaos because we can't just go based on law. Law is a reflection of the morality of what the church and the family's influence is in society. And so, Steve, we're already out of time, but I so appreciate how much you are willing to preach on your show. You are willing to stand up for truth and to call Christians to do our duty, which is to be faithful first to God. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. Wow. Well, that will preach. And I love that my good friend Steve Deace preaches on his show. We need more of that. That is what I love about AFR and this network as well, is that we are always coming from, first and foremost, a biblical Christian worldview of everything. And yes, we engage in political topics. We need to. Christians should not simply turn away from being engaged in civil society because it is so terrible now. In fact, that was what caused all of the problems that we are now reaping, because Christians abandoned our definitions of biblical truth and of objective truth in law and government. And this is years and years and years ago, when we embraced the lies of the culture and the spirit of the age and allowed the version and perversion of that to then be reflected in our law and our ordinances. Now we are seeing how far off the rails this is going and how there is no satiability of evil. The devil will always want more and more and more until there is complete and total destruction. And this started all the way back. I mean, when we can always go back into world history, of course, to the very beginning, right? When evil came into the garden, and when original sin happened and when the fall happened. I mean, we can go all the way back that far, right? But just for purposes of this conversation, we started out as a country with founders that maybe weren't perfect in their Christianity. They weren't perfect in their political views, but certainly understood a perfect God, understood that it is God who is the author and creator of all things, and he gives us our rights, not our government. And government is after God endowing us our rights. So rights are therefore pre-political. Our rights as human beings made in God's image are all ours, regardless of what political system has been or will be or is currently today. Our rights are pre-political. So how did we get from a system of government that I am so grateful for here in America, that still we have some vestiges of this, that we have our first freedoms, which is freedom of speech, freedom of association, free exercise of religion, freedom of the press, to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is to speak together about truth in media, on a medium like radio. But we're rapidly losing these vestiges of freedom and liberty. What should have been and what once was a protected right that is so intrinsic to our humanity that our founders deemed it inalienable. They said we can't even sell it or abridge it ourselves because it is so intrinsic to who we are as human beings that much less can a government system and a political system legitimately abridge that or infringe upon it in our society. And yet we see that even our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, I mean, all of these rights that are merely reflected and enumerated in our Constitution, they don't come from the First or Second Amendment. One of the worst ways that Christians and conservatives can advocate for our rights is to say the First Amendment gives me the freedom of speech. No, it doesn't. If we didn't have a First Amendment, Congress still would have no power given to it by Article 1, Section 8, and those specifically enumerated provisions of subject matter that Congress can legislate on that could infringe on our liberties and our fundamental rights. Our entire Bill of Rights didn't give us anything. It's simply a redundancy protection to say, hey, Congress, just in case you weren't clear about your specific enumerated powers, we are going to tell you what you can't touch because these are rights that are so fundamental to a free and ordered society that is governed by morality and objective truth that we are going to specifically tell you these are the ones that you cannot touch. So what happened between a time of our founding that we codified into our highest law of the land these rights to a time where just last week a DC court ruled that because of a negative critical blog post of 250 words, Mark Stein, who some of you will recognize as a commentator, used to fill in for Rush Limbaugh, Tucker Carlson, he actually had to pay a $1 million defamation fine because the person he was criticizing didn't like it. That is ridiculous. That is completely antithetical to our First Amendment guarantee of our rights. What happened to where we now see this bill in Iowa that simply wants to codify into the Iowa state code the difference between men and women, male and female. And we see all these LGBTQ activists that are saying, you're going to erase us, we literally won't exist anymore. I mean, please. But they go and they're protesting, and somehow tolerance and leftism has taught Christians that somehow we need to tolerate absolutely everything except truth in our society, except the principles of liberty and freedom, which enable us to exercise our rights. Because what good is it if the First Amendment and freedom of speech, free exercise of religion, all of that is textually in our Constitution, but we can't exercise it without fear of retribution and reprisal? This is exactly what is happening with all of the bar complaints that are being submitted against conservative and Christian lawyers across the country, including me. I'm facing one in Colorado. I talked with all of you on Thursday of last week, or Friday, about this, that I'm facing a bar complaint, and I appreciate everyone who has who's written in, sent encouragement. A few of you have asked about helping contribution-wise. You can. I still have givesendgo.com/support Jenna, and I appreciate that so much because I'm trying to fundraise to fight this. But even Glenn Beck's own attorneys, he said in a radio broadcast last week that his own attorneys, out of fear of bar complaints and impact to their licensure, are now stopping to represent him. Why? Because he's a conservative and because he's speaking truth. So in order to exercise his conservative views, he no longer has the privilege of counsel. I mean, this is not what America was founded to be. But it all started not when the Republican Party lost its majority and we have to somehow, the solution is to be a big tent and we just have to acquiesce to the log cabin Republicans and the Pride coalitions and all of these other people because, hey, they're going to vote with us. What do you think their vote is going to be on the Iowa bill? What do you think their vote is going to be in Colorado during, when the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, which is the modern day Star Chamber that put Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shop through hell, when that comes up for refunding? Do you think they're going to vote, quote unquote, conservative? Absolutely not. What good is it to be a big tent when we sacrifice our principles? I've started calling this moral gerrymandering, where we are artificially redrawing the boundaries of biblical objective truth and conceding ground to carve out different sins and different points of absolutely immoral conduct and worldview and belief systems so that we think we can still have a conservative majority. It's absolutely absurd logic. And this started all the way back, I mean, even before this culturally. But the first case that got to the Supreme Court was Griswold versus Connecticut in 1965. That was a key case where the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protects the liberty of married couples to use contraceptives without government restriction. And this case was the first that started codifying the immorality of the sexual revolution. Because when we decoupled the idea of what human sexuality is in the context of marriage and in the context of family, and we started saying we can and we want the liberty, the so-called liberty, which really in this context is the licentiousness, to be able to merely seek pleasure. We want our law to reflect that. And we want to, under the guise of liberty, be able to do what the Bible forbids, but say that the government cannot restrict us from behaving immorally. It would be the same thing as if we wanted to say, well, we need to be able to codify the liberty of intentional murder or intentional rape. Some of these other things that are clearly wrong that the government restricts rightfully because it is against the moral truth of God. So the court, of course, understood in Griswold versus Connecticut that they had no actual power to hold, to make this holding and to even hear this case. There is nothing given to the federal government in terms of its limited enumerated powers that touch on human sexuality or reproductive health care, if you want to use the leftist term for it, health care at all. None of those things are given to the federal government. And yet, the Supreme Court decided we are going to create this new doctrine, just like pastors do, when they want to teach something that's actually contrary to Scripture, to the text, because the Constitution, like the Bible, is a written document. It wasn't inspired divinely like the Bible, but it's a written text that you can interpret in ways according to originalism, authorial intent. And when pastors want to teach something that is outside of the Bible, they create a new doctrine. I mean, this is where Joel Osteen gets the prosperity gospel. That's not anywhere in Scripture, but he'll abuse and manipulate the text in order to get there. The Supreme Court did the very same thing in Griswold versus Connecticut by creating this doctrine called the penumbra doctrine that basically say our rights are not from God, our creator. They emanate from the lines between the text of the Constitution. Isn't that ridiculous? So under the divination of the 9 Supreme Court justices in robes, they can look between the lines of the text of the Constitution, say, here's a right that we want to bestow upon society, and now we have the power to determine when, where, and how they can exercise that right under the auspices of liberty. Because it's not just about the constitutional text giving government limited powers, it's now the Constitution giving us our rights. This led to all of the terrible social issues opinions that led to Obergefell versus Hodges in 2015 that codified same-sex marriage. We have been enabling for decades the sexual revolution that has now been so pervasive in this country, and the church is doing nothing about it. We can't just vote Republican. We have to be active in our churches. Get back to teaching the gospel of Christ. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce, 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.